As tensions in the volatile Indo-Pacific region remain high, a worrying new assessment claims that China can launch missile strikes across two-thirds of Australia. The Defence Strategic Review was announced in August by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, with the goal of helping defence better understand where it should prioritise investment to ensure the Australian Defence Force is well positioned to meet the nation's security challenges through to 2033 and beyond. According to Australian media, the recently released 33-page submission to the Defence Strategic Review, prepared by former defence analysts and the RAND Corporation, includes a map depicting the country's vulnerability to future Chinese strikes. The full report will be released in the spring of 2023. Australia, according to the submission, is within striking distance of Chinese missiles. The South China Sea artificial reefs and atolls would allow China to launch land-based DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missile strikes. China claims almost the entire South China Sea and has been steadily militarizing the region. For a long time, it has been speculated that China's DF-26 intermediate-range ballistic missile, capable of reaching targets approximately 3,400 miles away, could pose a threat to key U.S. military installations in the Pacific Rim. This is, however, the first time Canberra has acknowledged the threat to its sovereign territory and military assets. It is worth noting that the DF-26 long-range missile can carry 3 nuclear warheads, which can be separated and fired at different targets. It also has an anti-ship variant, the DF-21D medium-range ballistic missile, which has made headlines for its alleged ability to sink U.S. aircraft carriers. The latest submission also mentions the Mischief Reef Atoll, which is located 3,000 kilometers northwest of Darwin. This creates a ring range across several Australian Defence Force bases in Queensland, the Northern Territory, and Western Australia. Analysts and researchers have urged the Australian government to relocate stockpiles, fuel depots, and potential military bases further south on mainland Australia as a preventive measure against Chinese hostility. These submissions are significant because they follow a similar claim that Chinese missiles endanger the United States. The United States revealed in November that China had installed long-range ballistic missiles aboard nuclear submarines capable of striking the United States. Admiral Sam Paparo, commander of the United States Pacific Fleet, stated that China's 6 Jing-class submarines are now armed with JL-3 intercontinental ballistic missiles designed to threaten the United States. JL-3 missiles can travel over 10,000 kilometers. The US officially admitted for the first time that China had deployed the weapons on its nuclear-powered submarines, allowing it to attack the US mainland from its shores. Western states' open admissions point to China's rapidly expanding arsenal. Military experts believe the two sides' tensions could escalate into a full-fledged conflict. China's expansion concerns Australia. The submissions come at a time when tensions in the region have risen despite some diplomacy between the two countries. Tensions rose earlier this year when China signed a security agreement with the Solomon Islands, a small island nation just miles from Australia. The deal's secrecy fueled fears that China would establish a military base 2,000 kilometers away from Canberra. Scott Morrison, Australia's then Prime Minister, warned that China's naval base in the Solomon Islands would be a red line for his country and the United States. Despite their animosity, the two sides have come a long way. Last month, Australian Prime Minister Albanese met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in a significant breakthrough following China's imposition of more than $20 billion in trade sanctions on Australia during years of bitter rivalry. However, given some fundamental issues between the two countries, it is unclear how far the meeting will have an impact. Canberra, for example, is a staunch ally of the United States. Albanese recently downplayed a federal visit by MPs to Taiwan for fear of provoking China after restoring some semblance of normalcy in relations. Even though the two countries' relationship appears to have stabilized in recent months, the underlying issues remain. Australia has lost control of the South China Sea, according to NSW Liberal Senator Jim Mollin. He claimed that under President-elect Jinping's leadership, China had mastered the art of the grey zone, which he defined as aggressive acts that do not escalate into armed conflict. This is significant in light of China's earlier intimidation of Australian P-8A reconnaissance aircraft. The Australian report's findings come just days after the Pentagon warned that China's nuclear arsenal will have 1,500 warheads by 2035, naming Beijing as the most significant threat to the US in a new assessment. According to the Pentagon, China's operational nuclear weapon inventory has surpassed 400. Australia's ambition to acquire a nuclear submarine under the AUKUS agreement is moving at a snail's pace. The Chinese security pact with the Solomon Islands, as well as its appeasement of Pacific Island countries, have altered Australia's geopolitical and security calculations. Despite using diplomacy to achieve stability in relations with Beijing, Canberra is aware of the dangers posed by China's expansion and aggressiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. The United States will strengthen Australian defenses. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin stated that the U.S. would increase the rotational presence of air, land, and sea forces in Australia, including bomber aircraft and fighters, while also sharing his concerns about Chinese belligerence. The two countries also agreed to invite Japan to integrate into our force posture initiatives in Australia, according to Austin. He told a joint news conference with his Australian